the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Boom. Taylor, we are recording. Welcome to Doomed to Fail.
Thank you.
I'm welcoming the audience. Hi, four of you. Welcome to Doomed to Fail. We are the twice weekly podcast where we cover Doomed to Fail topics, and we're going to be doing that, I think, today.
Do it.
Well, mine is definitely Doomed to Fail. I don't know what yours is about. Who goes first today?
I think you do.
Okay, so mine is very Doomed to Fail-y,
Okay, I'm ready.
but it has nothing to do with what we typically cover on the show. So
Great.
changing the format yet again. Okay, this can be a long one, I think, Taylor. I'm trying, but especially given the time crunch, I'm gonna try and buzz through it. So I'm gonna start by saying my topic and then tell you what the impetus for all this was. So, have you ever heard of a company called Juicero?
Yes. Is it that weird machine?
Yes.
Yes.
Do
Cool.
you know much about it?
Well, a little bit. A little bit, but tell me more. It's wild.
It's a wild story. It's an incredible story. It's very, very doomed to fail, and it made me think like all kinds of different things. So basically, the reason I started this topic was one of our old friends, Jeff Dunn. He put me onto a podcast called Better Offline, and it's hosted by this Silicon Valley tech journalist, a guy named Ed Zitrone, and actually gave Dunn a lot of shit about liking this podcast and recommending it to me, mostly because all this guy does is just shit on tech. Like he shits on tech, he shits on venture capital, he shits on the people who run tech. What I told Jeff was like, this guy picked the wrong career because he obviously hates this industry. And
Right.
just like some of the topics of the episodes that he does, one of them, okay, so here's four of them. We're watching Facebook die, how Mark Zuckerberg deliberately made Facebook worse, the man that destroyed Google search, the autopsy of Apple Vision Pro. Like it's just like constantly just like shitting on it things. But he had one called How Growth is Killing Tech Innovation. And I listened to that. Actually, I listened to that like a while ago. And yeah, I'll go into it. But I'll summarize basically the gist of it. Basically, what he was saying, he was interviewing another tech journalist named Robert Evans. And they provided a breakdown of how venture capital works. And for those of you who are not in tech, the TLDR of this is basically if you're a founder trying to get a company going, you'll either self-fund or angel fund a initial round of your company's existence. Then you go to a traditional venture capitalist, typically in Silicon Valley, and raise your Series A. Hopefully that's good enough to where you get to a scale where you can raise a Series B, a Series C, and so on and so forth, until you reach what's called like breakout velocity. And that's kind of like the entire point of it. What this episode basically was trying to highlight is that darling version of like these groups of investors who are trying to like propel growth for the sake of humanity and the betterment of humanity and all that stuff is actually not that clear that they're actually doing that. They're also getting hoodwinked and falling for a lot of scammy, stupid stuff. And that's a big part of why a lot of the tech you see like lately hasn't been really all that interesting or innovative. It's because we're just like gonna fund the shiny object and get that going. And the topic of today is kind of like where is the best example of that I could possibly find. But one other point that episode makes is that those venture capitalists really don't give a shit about making money as like they don't give a shit about the company being profitable and making money. They give a shit about making the company big enough so that it can IPO, so that the public can fund the company and they can extract all their value out of it. So
Right. They're just serial entrepreneurs.
exactly, this is interesting. I did not know this, but apparently Facebook took $700 million over 5 years before it ever turned a profit.
Wow.
Guess how much Uber took?
$1 billion.
$20 billion.
What? I thought I was being ridiculous saying $1 billion.
Guess when they became profitable?
Yesterday?
2021. Pretty close.
Oh my God.
Is that nuts?
That's nuts. And like they can't like I can't believe we can't find money to help poor people.
It's crazy. It's
You know,
nuts.
like in America, no one should be hungry if
Yeah.
that's happening.
And it was funny because like the same thing was true for, well, it's kind of true for Airbnb. I mean, they took a lot less money. Uber seems like it's an outlier, but Airbnb
Hmm.
took $6.4 billion,
Whoa.
and they didn't become profitable until 2022. That's 14 years after they were founded, and
Wow.
way after they actually had IPO'd. And so that was kind of the entire point of the podcast, was like they're not actually creating valuable companies because they're providing value to the marketplace. They're just creating value for the investors, and that's basically all that really matters.
Yeah.
Fair point. So from a purely economic standpoint, the founding of the companies I just named off was basically like a net positive. Overall, those three companies employ over 100,000 people, and they're responsible for just shy of $1.5 trillion of economic activity in the US. So, on that level, it's a good thing. But on the other side of venture capital and fundraising is that the firms, like I said, they don't really care about the idea or the innovation, or really even the users or the financial outcomes for those individual companies. They're just looking to dump as much money as they can into something, IPO, have the public market take it over, and kind of clear their path for making as much money as possible off the IPO. And so what I put down here is it's basically like a very expensive shell game, and
Hmm.
the public is the one funding all the excesses of Silicon Valley. And it made me think back, Taylor, about like our past, like like the shit that we've seen in our
Yeah.
history, and it's just like the flagrant use of money in the stupidest ways possible. That like I don't know. I don't know if she's all to go into about this stuff, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. And I think even like, I don't know, 2 years ago or whatever, when Silicon Valley Bank crashed and like got bailed out, and then there were people that I worked with who were like, yay, but they're also like, I'm a libertarian. And I'm like, fuck you, but you can't be both. You can't be
Yeah,
like bailouts for me and not for anyone else. What?
yeah, yeah. So wild.
Yeah,
Um, it is weird. San Francisco does have this weird like leave me alone and also help me
exactly.
vibe to it
Okay.
that's so very confusing.
Yeah.
So I feel like these days people are becoming like pretty front, like it's becoming pretty front and center for people. Those excesses of Silicon Valley. I looked this up. So far, there have been 5 movies or TV shows about the rise and fall of Theranos, and there is now a movie and a miniseries starring Jared Leto about the rise and fall of WeWork. So
Wow. Yeah.
we're seeing this stuff, right?
It's fascinating.
Um,
Yeah, that makes sense.
it's totally fascinating. And to be fair, I wanted to like cover an example of this, but I didn't want to cover a company where like they just kind of guessed wrong, and in hindsight, you can look back and say, "Oh, they messed up here, here, and here," because that's not really fair. Like everybody messes up, right?
Yeah.
I came up with this like stupid example. And I did a bit of research on it. Do you remember you know Vimeo, what Vimeo is, right?
Yeah.
So this is interesting. So Vimeo and YouTube are essentially competitors, like, but not
Hmm.
really, right? Like at this point, who gives a shit about Vimeo? But they started out as competitors. What's interesting is that Vimeo was ahead of YouTube by a year. So they got a jump start on things, but the only difference was that Vimeo made creators pay to upload videos to their platform, and they would upcharge them based on quality of the video, storage capacity, things like that. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
YouTube's business model was free for creators, they monetize using advertising. That's not like haha, what an idiot Vimeo was. They just guessed wrong. They just like tried one thing and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it actually kind of worked out because Vimeo's net market cap right now is $600 million, but that's obviously nothing compared to YouTube, which is like estimated to be around 200 billion.
Oh,
So
God.
it wasn't like a huge, it wasn't like a failure, but like in this context, I guess it was.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to talk about today is like this one company who's just so obviously patently stupid. Like this is not like a someone guessed wrong situation. This is just like blinders to the world situation.
Oh my God.
So so the company, like I said, the company I'm covering is called Juicero, and it's like juice, the word juice arrow. And this company was founded in 2013 by a guy named Doug Evans in San Francisco. His intent behind the company was kind of noble. His early life was plagued by tragedy. So when he was 30 years old, his mother died of cancer. Shortly thereafter, his father died of heart disease. His brother had a host of problems. He had diabetes, atrial fibrillation, several strokes, and hypertension. And because this Doug was understandably freaked out that he needs to do whatever he can to be as healthy as possible to stave off all these ailments that are in his family. So he did the best he can do for your heart, and he launched a startup, which I have no idea how you think that would actually be beneficial for you. But he was trying to generally live as healthy as he possibly could during this time. He converted to veganism and also became obsessed with cold juicing. And this is like
Hmm.
in the early 2000s. Um, he fell into the health movement head first and started his first foray into business by launching Organic Avenue, which was a cold pressed juice store in New York City. This was, like I said, in 2002, which actually shows that he was a little bit ahead of his time. Now, there's one of these stores on every block in Los Angeles, for example, like Press Juicery, Juice Press,
Yeah.
Project Juice. I did one of these. What's that one little village part called in LA? It's like a very quaint, cute little celebrity villagey kind of a spot. I forgot what it's called. Anyways, they have this like beautiful juice press store there, and
Hmm.
I tried to do one of those diets for like 3 days, and it was horrible. I don't know how people do it, but the good thing about this is like he was way ahead of his time. It would take another 10 plus years before all these companies would kind of pop up and follow this cold juice press fad that Doug basically started. So over time, he would have ultimately sell Organic Avenue in 2012, and he decided he wanted to attack the juice market in a different way by launching Juicero. So he founded the company in 2013, but the product didn't actually launch until 2016. And the concept was pretty simple. It was going for kind of the Apple of concept of creating an incredibly beautiful, high quality looking juicer. And it also had a very Apple like price tag of $700 per unit. So the reason it took so long to launch this thing, there's multiple, but one of them was this thing was so over engineered. It was so well done. It was so perfect. Like it was
Hmm.
the best of everything kind of brought together to make this juicer. And so that's why it costs so much as well. I'll talk about this later, but the conversion rate from then to now is about $900. So it was a juicer for over $900. So
Ridiculous.
it totally. But Doug wasn't just trying to create like a beautiful juicer, much like today's AI craze, which is exactly why I talk shit about the AI craze right now. Back then, all anybody paid attention to was IoT, the Internet of Things. Remember this? This is the fad of the 2010s onward.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Explain it again.
So, Internet of Things just refers to an internet connected device. So, physical items with an application layer
Mm-hmm.
tied to the internet. It's interesting. I looked this up. So the concept it's actually been around for a long time. So the very first IoT device was a Coke vending machine in Carnegie Mellon University in 1982, which was remotely able to update someone somewhere else on the inventory in the vending machine and whether they were cold or not. So that was like the
Hmm.
starting point of all this. The RFIDs are the second iteration of this that are considered IoT devices, but I said RFIDs, didn't I? Yeah,
Yeah.
RFIDs. Okay, good. Um, thank you. So today, like obviously, we look at IoT devices as kind of ubiquitous, like Apple Watches, for example, or your smart TV, or like Teslas would be considered IoTs at this point.
Hmm.
Um, Basically, most things are connected to the internet, which obviously has like its ups and downs. The best possible example might be Apple Watch, which can detect if you've been in a car crash or if you're a senior citizen and you've fallen down, so they can automatically
Hmm.
call for help. The worst of this, which we heard about recently a year ago, was BMW, who started rolling out subscription services during the wintertime to BMW owners for $18 a month to turn on heated seats in their cars.
Wow.
Crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, IoT back in the 2010s became kind of like a Silicon Valley buzzword. And if you wanted to get funded, you would kind of refer to yourself as an IoT company the same way that you would do that today with AI. We have a friend, Taylor. I don't know if he's told you this, but he works in appliances like
Hmm.
ovens and stuff like that. And when ChatGPT was initially released and the craze around ChatGPT started, I remember having a call with him, and he mentioned how their entire team is getting together at an offsite, like an emergency kind of offsite situation, and they have to figure out how to incorporate AI into like stoves.
Yeah.
And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, I don't know. It's just we have to have AI. Like,
Yeah, everyone does for whatever
yeah.
reason. Yeah.
And so it's a nice correlate of what was going on in the 2010s when everybody was like, we have to have IoT. It's got to be IoT. And so, yeah, I looked this up. So apparently in the 2010s, so between 2010 and 2015, funding for IoT devices doubled in that time frame. And I went down a weird rabbit hole here, but I kind of blame this trend for why the WeWork situation happened. Mostly
Hmm.
because funding tech companies who are doing like cool, innovative new things was the point of venture capital in the beginning. And when the IoT trend started, it started migrating from tech to things being what was fundable,
Hmm.
ultimately ending up in WeWork, which like what part of WeWork is tech or innovative? Like I don't get it. Like
No, because like a physical place and like all the things that just look cool,
but that's the thing.
right?
Like it's considered kind of like a Silicon Valley darling and a Silicon Valley failure. But it's like why?
Right.
Like they have an app the same way Campbell Soup has an app. They're not a tech company. Like
Right.
I looked this up. So the first co-working space, or the biggest co-working space until WeWork's uh, downfall was Regis, and that started in 1989. It's literally the exact same concept,
Oh wow.
except WeWork introduced cold brew and like
Exactly. And like
hipster
free beer.
decor. Yeah, yeah, but like I don't know. It kind of put me on this path of like, wait, so how do we decide that we work with a tech company? Oh, it all started here, where everybody just puts the internet on a book or a piece of gum or something, and
Right.
it's like now it's an IoT device. And so, anyways, back to Juicero. So it was against kind of that backdrop that they officially launched the business. So, like I said, it was founded in 2013. It didn't launch until 2016. Up to that point, the company went through three fundraising rounds. The first was a seed round in 2013 at 4.1 million, which is great, by the way. Like if you can get $4 million free anything, like that is awesome.
Hmm.
Um, a Series A in April of 2014 at 16.5 million, and then a Series B in March of 2016 at 70 million. This is all pre-launch. So it raised $90 million before it had a physical product. That's
Wow.
crazy
That's
amounts of money.
crazy. Yeah.
You're gonna say something?
No, I'm yawning.
Oh,
Continue.
thank you. That's good.
It's early. It's early this time.
I'm gonna edit that out. So I did the math on this. So at $90 million valuation, it would put the market cap at the time of its launch. It's somewhere between 300 and $500 million. Again, with zero product and zero evidence of product demand for or market demand for that product. By comparison, I have no idea what this company is. I just like Googled around for companies with a similar market cap. There's an online retailer called The Real Real, and that has a market cap of just under $400 million with annual revenues of $551 million. So that's like
Wow.
the universe we're in now versus what the hell was going on in 2016 when we all kind of figuratively lost our minds. So Juicero launches its $700 beautiful juicing machine. But the thing was, the device didn't make juice kind of the traditional way. My favorite part of researching all this was when I found the original Juicero commercial, which, by the way, all comments have been disabled for, which is a really, really great idea. And it shows this quintessential Los Angeles kind of couple. They're
Uh-huh.
young, they're obviously well off, they have a nice little kitschy house, and they decide that they want to make juice one day. And so this commercial follows them around in their journey to try and make juice. They have to walk down to the farmer's market. They spend hours going from booth to booth, get kale
Uh,
from this guy, get carrots from that guy, get the cucumbers from this other guy, all the fixins.
so
And at
funny.
that point, they realize they didn't bring their tote bag. And so they end up walking home, cradling their produce all the way home as they're dropping parts of it, having to stop and pick it up. Once they get there, they have to find all the parts of their juicer, which was at the back of a cabinet. So first they had to take everything else before they get to the juicer. Then they realized there was a missing part of the juicer, so they spent another hour searching for that. At this point, the kitchen is a complete mess. And next, they have to clean and dice their vegetables. Then they have to dice them or wash them again after dicing. Eventually, they find the missing part of the juicer. and then make their juice. That's not how the commercial ends. They're not done yet.
Hours of time.
Hours of time. At this point, they now have to clean their kitchen. So they basically, in this commercial, associate the complexity of making a juice with building a nuclear reactor. And so they invented this problem that had to be solved, which, like, nobody normal would have that experience trying to make juice.
Yeah.
And also, you just buy juice. Like, you don't have
Just
to
buy juice.
just buy
Oh.
juice. So at that point, the commercial shifts to how they're going to solve this problem that they created, essentially. And it pans over to this beautiful looking device on the couple's kitchen counter. The wife opens the front part of it and reveals this like orange flat interior with little flat hook looking things at the top that you could hang a bag off of, kind of like an IV bag type of thing.
Exactly, like an IV bag. I'm looking at it. Yeah.
Totally. Then you close the front door, you push the slick looking button, and all these gears whir into place, and they efficiently and effectively squeeze the content from the bag into your glass. Like I said, I looked up all of Juicero's videos on YouTube because they still have a channel active, and all their comments are disabled, which is like super, super smart.
That's so funny.
So they also leveraged the fervor around the IoT piece I mentioned earlier and branded themselves as a connected device, which the investors obviously loved, and it also gave them access to a new part of the business model, which was basically how like inkjet printers function. So the IoT concept involved the juice bags themselves that would be squeezed. The juice you could squeeze out of a Juicero bag was sold by Juicero itself, and the IoT idea behind it was that the juicer would read the bag, the QR code on the bag, and only then would it operate and squeeze the contents out of it. And their argument for this was for quality control. Like if there's a spinach recall, we could immediately disable the ability to squeeze juice out of that pack, or if it's out of date, or if it's whatever, like we can figure something out for that. So that was the entire reason why they said they did that. But realistically, it's just like the inkjet thing. They're trying to make their money off the back end, right?
I hate those. Having a printer is the fucking worst experience you can have as a human. Yeah.
Worst.
It's terrible.
100%.
Yeah.
I don't get why Apple hasn't solved this. Why doesn't Apple just build like, if they did it, it would be so much easier.
For real. That's weird. Good question.
I'm gonna write a letter to Tim Cook.
Perfect.
So sales numbers aren't public, obviously, because the company never went public. But we can make some assumptions around what was going on. So presumably it wasn't going well 8 months after launch, because by January of 2017, they reduced the price of the juicer itself from $700 to $400. No, the packs were separate. Those were between $5 and $7 a piece. So you buy those separate.
And you have to like have a subscription, right? Or something.
I don't know if they did a subscription model. I think you could just pick the packs themselves. I tried figuring this out by going to their website. Obviously, it's no longer in existence. But I went to the Wayback Machine. And if you try to go past the homepage on the Wayback Machine, it doesn't. It's all 404s, so you can't really figure that out. The beginning of the end happened in April of 2017, so about a year after launch, when Bloomberg News published a video entitled, quote, "Do you need a $400 juicer?" It's only a minute long, and it became a meme really, really quickly. And I watched it, and everybody should watch it too. In the video, two panels are presented, and one is a pair of hands squeezing a Juicero juice pack, and in the other is the juicer squeezing the juice pack. The video finishes with both the juicer and the pair of hands squeezing the same amount of juice out of the pack and presenting the cup to the camera. So it is presumed at that time that Juicero had sold between 2,000 and 3,000 units. The price some customers had paid, like I mentioned before, were $700, while others paid $400. So $700 people were pissed anyways. Then this Bloomberg video comes out, and then everybody's pissed. So customer demand for refunds floods in, and by June, they had to lay off 25% of their staff, and they were losing approximately $4 million per month. By September of 2017, 18 months after launching, and blowing through $120 million in total funding, that's an insane amount of money to blow through. The company shut its doors completely. So overall, ton of money blown, ton of jobs were lost. What's interesting is, I think today, okay, don't kill me for this for saying this, Taylor. I think it's not a terrible concept if it had been executed differently.
I mean, I feel like the machine is unnecessary.
Yeah. So one thing that I thought was like the real value prop here was they actually secured a pretty intense supply chain of farm to table produce and like of
Yeah.
creating the contents that go into those packs. The biggest problem I thought was the price of the juicer itself, the reason why it exists and what the product value of the juicer itself was, and the expense of kind of creating it itself. Now, I think that if you were to create it, maybe you could sync it with a diet app. Maybe you could sync it with an app where it could automatically order fresh juice based on your diet requirements. Maybe one needs to be more protein rich, one needs to be more vitamin. I think it could be a cool concept if you just reduce the initial price from like $700 to like I don't know, maybe like $50 or $100 or something, but
Hmm.
I don't know. Um, it also serves as like a really great case study. This is the other rabbit hole I went down of why you shouldn't just talk to people like yourself. So,
That's very fair. Yeah.
so based on inflation, like I said before, $700 in 2016 is about $907 in 2024 money. So, assuming the average cost of a juice pack from them was about $6, which it is, and presume consumption of 5 times per week, which is, if you're really big into juicing, it's probably light. If you're not, then it's probably average, whatever. That means that your annual spend pre-tax in your first year of juicing comes to $2,140. The average household income in the US as of today, not back then, as of today, is $74,580. The top 10% of households earn $173,000. So that means that the creators and the investors of this device assume that the average American household would be willing to spend 3% of their gross income on juice and juice related material. So
That's probably not true.
so according to the US Bureau of Labor and Statistics, that meant Americans would be spending as much on juicing as they do annually on clothing, and they would spend more on juicing than they spend on education.
I just feel like not that much many people like juice.
Like it seems like
Like juice, fine, but it's not food. And what are you talking?
I know. Like, and again, when I did that, so it was like a 3-day juice cleanse when I was living in LA, Hancock Village, I think. I forgot what. Damn, I can't remember the name. But yeah, went to that one juicery and paid like 300 something bucks for 3 days of juice, and
Yeah.
it was like by the end of the first day, I was like, this is stupid. Like this is so bad. Like this can't be good for you. Like your body's not
I
made to live
die.
off liquid. like like I think living off liquid is what you do right before you die
Yeah.
when you can't eat anymore. So I actually pulled this stat too, which is interesting. So going back to like just talk to other people. So the average VC, like the average person that works for a VC firm in Silicon Valley makes about minimum 212 to roughly around like $500,000 a year. It is
Hmm.
probably close to the $500,000 a year piece. Partners, on the other hand, are in the $1 to $5 million a year range. And the actual owners of the venture capital firms are in the hundreds of millions and billions of dollars a year range. So if you only talk to yourself, you're like, dude, $700 for juice? Easy. Like, what an obviously
Seems
simple
fair.
value prop. Yeah, it seems totally reasonable. Like, someone's trying to sell their organs, to feed their kids and don't want to spend $700 on a juicer. And so, step outside of your comfort zone, talk to people that aren't in your circle, and maybe, it'll be overall a net positive for you. So,
That's so
um,
funny.
but
I know
yeah, that was my piece.
I know someone who got one from Oprah. They like someone I knew that like worked in Hollywood was at a party and Oprah was like, "Oh my God, I love this new juicer," and gave everyone one at the party. Like a you get a juicer, you get a juicer. And then they like had it and then they were like, "This is stupid. It's like really big." And they gave it to someone else. And I don't know how long they used it, but ridiculous.
It's really big. It's really big. If you
Yeah, it's
watch that
huge.
commercial and you see it again, over-engineered as hell, totally unnecessary. It's also not a juicer. It is just a press. It is like the things you
Right.
use to make tortillas. You know those little things that you press down the
Yeah.
metal plates to make tortillas? It's that automated. You literally do the exact same thing with a $3 thing you buy from a Mexican restaurant store or something.
That's so wild.
But yeah, it made me go back, Taylor, to like the old days. And I was I was talking to a friend who worked for another company that you'd probably also know that was kind of like in our cohort back in the day, and they raised a ton of money, and they were talking about how they had like voice operated like soda machines where you could walk up and like talk to a machine and it would like dispense the exact amount of like it's crazy
But
how much money
do
we
we
saw
need
people
that?
just
No.
blow.
Yeah.
And then you think about like the layoffs and stuff, and you're like, what absolute waste.
So ridiculous. So silly.
But anyways, luckily Silicon Valley's learned its lesson. It's never going to do that again.
I know. I'm so glad how they're so responsible these days. So that's just so nice, you know?
Taylor, do you not see it too with this AI thing? Do you not see like how I think that there's like obviously really great applications of it, but then also the fact that everybody's like, oh, we're the AI of this, we're the AI of it's like it
Uh,
can't be that ubiquitous and still be novel.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's cool in some places, but yeah, I don't need it everywhere for sure. Like
Yeah.
my mom was here and she was like, well, now when I'm in like Instagram, there's no more Google Chrome. It's just Ask AI. And I'm like, it's the same thing, but it's just like pretending to be different, you know?
It's so stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so stupid. I hate it. But whatever, it's gonna keep coming around. So yeah, that's my story. Hope you liked it.
Cool. It's wild. It's so dumb. It's so silly.
I started researching murder stuff, and I was like, I literally just can't read another
Another
semen
murder.
stained panty story. Like it's just not.
No, that's wild.
So anyways, yeah, that's our story. If you work for tech and have seen some of these excesses, like we would love I love talking to other people and hearing like what their companies have done before in the past. It is fascinating.
Yeah,
So write to
it
us.
really is wild. Yeah.
Um, cool. Anything to report, Taylor?
No, thank you everyone for listening. If any, we're almost, I have four more re-releases to do. So that's exciting. We're almost closing that loop. And thanks everyone for listening. Let us know if you have any ideas and please tell your friends and give us a review on Apple Podcasts. That would be really helpful.
Please. And we're at doomtofail@gmail.com.
Doom to
Wait,
fail
we
pod.
are sorry, shall we say it?
Doom to fail pod at gmail.com.
Thank you. Thank
As a
you.
pod at the end.
Awesome. Sorry for the rush this morning, everyone, but we're gonna cut this off and join with Taylor here in a few days.
Cool. Thank you.
Yep.